Welcome back. In this clip, we'll talk about the n particle conversions to the polygons. We have a number of benefits while converting them back to the polygons. First is that we can simply export the mesh into the Alembic file format. And then secondly, once we have the polygon mesh, we can assign nice and interesting shaders and a lot of help inside the rendering, because the default mode of Arnold also doesn't support the blobby or the spherical type of the particles. But for this particular module, I would like to do the rendering with the mental ray. Alright, so let's do one thing. Let's first of all select the end particle 2 and let's simply play the timeline. We have an effect like this with nice and interesting fickle both in the horizontal as well as the vertical. So let's select the end particle 2, move over inside menu. Inside the convert, we can use the command end particle to the polygons. So the moment you click this, you have something like this. Now simply don't worry about the overall result, we'll make it fixed, not a problem. Now there are first of all three things which we need to consider. The moment we convert this into a polygon, there is an object over here that is by the name of poly surface 1. Let's do one thing, let's hide this for a moment. Now if we play the timeline, the question comes, where exactly is my particle? So you don't need to worry about this. Your particles are very much there inside the scene. If you notice, the moment we convert the particles into polygon mesh, it has just changed the overall appearance of the particle icon. Notice the change inside the particle icon of n particle 1 and n particle 2. Well, that's very easy to fix. You can press Ctrl A. We can go inside the object display, and now Maya has actually enabled the intermediate object. So the moment you turn this off, you'll get your particles back, and just don't worry about this icon. If you just click, you can get your icon of the particles back. Alright, this is the way Maya handle things once you convert the particles into the polygon mesh. So at the moment we don't want the particles, we simply want to focus on the polygon mesh, so we can simply click to the intermediate object once again. Alright, now if you simply click this, you can see the icon is now changed. So bring back the poly surface by pressing Shift H, and notice the horrible change over here we have. But just don't worry, if you play the time slider, you still can see that yes, a kind of liquid is still moving, but yes, we have completely lost the forms. We don't have any trail, but we still have some interesting motion. Let me just play, and now you can notice. Alright, now the question is, how can we fix this? So simply select the n particle 2. Everything is now inside the n particle nodes. So press Ctrl A. We need to find an out mesh settings, and this is somewhere here. This is the output mesh, I'm sorry. Now the most important thing is the mesh triangle size with respect to the mesh triangle resolutions. Alright, so let's do one thing. First of all, let's simply increase the mesh smoothing iterations to maybe 3, and this will make the forms a little bit more rounder. And here we have the max triangle resolution, so increase this value to maybe, let's say, 300. Alright, now the most important attribute is the mesh triangle size. Right now if I take you to the wireframe on display, you can see there is a triangle size and it's quite a big. So the moment we change this to, let's say, maybe 0.1, now you notice everything is in our control, not a problem. So now we have introduced a much higher, you can say, triangle size. Now if the resolution is increased, you can have your forms back. Now if you simply select this and just disable the wireframe on shade, now we have very nice and beautiful particle trails, and now they are simply the polygons. Let me do one thing. Let me select this and assign some nice shader. Let's say we have a blend, and let me also change the color of the blend. Alright, I do this thing a little later. So right now I have a default blue color. Alright, and we can change this to maybe somewhat like this. Alright, no problem. So if I play the timeline again, notice the change we have. Now we have some really nice, interesting and realistic water droplet. And I also take you to a very important thing, that is once the two once the two trails tries to mix, there's a very nice and beautiful blending of the particles. If you just notice, that we play the timeline and you notice the way it merges with the another droplet, it is something very, very nice and interesting. Or you may have some gaps inside this, let's say this one, this is basically a gap, so don't need to worry about this thing. We can simply, select the end particle 2 and now play along with the value that is mesh triangle size. You can also dip it down to maybe 0.075. All right, so this will add some more extra resolutions of the triangles, and this is something really very nice. And now let's start playing with the most important attribute, that is the threshold. Now if I have a threshold 0.5, you can notice that it is making your the overall droplet very thin and very interesting also. What if we have a threshold 0? You can see the particle size is now getting increased, but I strictly recommend you should go with the value of threshold. Let's say a value of 0.35 can be a good start. And along with this, you can play with the blobby radius scale. Let's say we have value of 0.125, and that is something really very nice. All right, so these were the interesting steps we have, and now you have mastered the concept of converting the particles into the simply into the polygons. All right, not a problem, and this is something really very interesting. All right, so that's all for this clip. Now in the next clip we'll talk about some additional and secondary water droplets, and we also talk about the rendering setup of our effect. All right, so see you there in the next clip.